This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Hello, I am Joel McLeod.
And I'm Roland Tanner.
And welcome to the 905er. Police board budgets are a common issue that 905 municipalities are trying to reckon with. In an era where municipalities are urged to keep property taxes low and to rein in spending, police budgets have increased exponentially. Not one municipality in Ontario has been able to keep police spending in line with the previous year's budget. Each year, police ask for more tax dollars and municipalities sign the check. Why is this happening? Where is the accountability? Part of the problem is the inability of elected mayors and councillors to properly and openly hold police boards to account. We touched on this issue before in our episode with Hamilton Councillor Cameron Kroetsch on his disciplining by Hamilton's police over his open criticism of their budget. The issue of elected officials being able to openly debate and criticize police budgets has come up again in recent news. In Peel Region, newly elected mayor for Mississauga Caroline Parrish resigned from her position on the police board. Her reasoning was her inability to openly discuss and question the Peel Police Board's 23.3% budget increase from the previous year. Governments across the country are being demanded to control spending and keep taxes low. Why would we not allow municipalities to openly debate and make decisions on the largest expense that they deal with? We invited onto the podcast Mississauga Mayor Carolyn Parrish to ask her these questions and to find out what is happening to accountability with our police and our municipalities. Okay, well, thank you to Mayor Carolyn Parrish from the great city of Mississauga for coming on to talk with us today about your decision to step down from the Peel Region's police board over their basically their budget ask. So we thank you very much for taking the time from your schedule to come on and discuss this topic with us.
Oh, no problem. Especially when you call it the great city of Mississauga, it gives me a thrill.
Well, I'm gonna put it back to you, Mayor Parrish. For our listeners who are outside of Mississauga, can you explain to us what your rationale was for your decision to step down from the police board in your own words, please?
Well, I've just been put on the board about the last 3 months. I was sworn in as mayor about 6 months ago, but it takes a while to go through the whole rigmarole of passing some tests and so forth. But I got on the board a couple of months ago. They were in the process of building their budget request. What happens with the police budget is the region of Peel is the vehicle for that budget. And the region of Peel is made up of 3 different municipalities: Caledon, which uses OPP, Brampton and Mississauga, which share Peel Regional Police. The budget was coming in extremely high. It was 15% increase last year. It came in, the first run was 23.4% increase this year, 300 new officers, 55 new civilians, and it was just looking pretty heavy. We asked a few questions. They refined it a bit. They came back at 21.3 to the Police Services Board, and that's how it was presented to the region of Peel. Now, there are governing rules. When you're sitting on the Police Services Board, it's made up of 7 people. The 2 mayors and the regional chair are on it. There's 1 citizen appointed by the region, and there are 3 citizens appointed by the province. As a code of conduct, you can't criticize openly outside of the boardroom any decisions that are being made. Meantime, as the mayor of Mississauga, that budget increase was going to impact our city budget and regional budget to the point where citizens were already at 5.5% increase before anything went in on the city and anything went on the rest of the region. I have a very hard time not being critical. I asked a lot of questions in the couple of meetings we had. The answers kept coming back. We need 300 officers, 55 civilians, and all the accoutrements that go with that. And I was realizing it was something I was going to have to speak against as the mayor of the city, so that older folks that are barely making their payments on taxes are now going to lose their houses, because it was going to come in over 9%. And that is just a little bit too much for us to be able to say, well, I can't speak on it. I'm on the board, so I have to agree with it. I've never been a person that could do that.
I think we can respect, as an elected official, you should be able to openly criticize or defend any said position to the people who elected you. That's how democracies work. We wanted to talk about this with you because this is a trend that we've seen. Police boards around the 905 and around Ontario really have just, we can't think of one in our recent history that hasn't asked for some sizable increase, like a double-digit increase in funding for them. I want to ask your take as somebody who, you've been around municipal politics for a while. Why is it that police budgets never seem to plateau? They're always rising. They're always just, there's never seems to be a check on each year's ask for more money.
Because there really isn't a check. As long as you've got the police board convinced that that's what you need those officers and you need them now. Once you step out of that room, you can't speak against it. So what happens is the elected people, and there's only 2 elected people on our board, myself and Mayor Brown from Brampton. Now, Mayor Brown's a very enthusiastic police fellow, but he has a different motive. The way the payments have been worked out for the last 50 years at the Peel region is the portion we each pay to the police services or the police budget, the portion we take, is based on an impact evaluation. An impact evaluation takes all the land, all the buildings, all the infrastructure in a city, and it gives it a value. So Mississauga's value is 62%, and Brampton's value is 38%. So this budget is going to whack, bad choice of words, it's going to whack us an extra $85 million more than what Mr. Brown is paying on his taxes, for his taxpayers. So it's really gotten to the point where it's so heavy. Last year was 15%, this year's 23.3%, that I can't sit back and say, we're going to take this. We just can't. We are paying an extra $85 million, our taxpayers, to cover policing in Brampton, and that's not right.
It seems to, we spoke a few months ago. We spoke to Councillor Cameron Kroetsch from Hamilton, who is, I believe, maybe still is, but is currently suspended from the Hamilton Police Services Board. Basically, the same thing. That he was on the board. The board came to a decision, and he took a slightly different approach from you, in that he didn't resign, but did speak in council openly about his opposition to a major increase. At which point, the board did exactly as you suggested they would do, which is basically say, you can't do that. You're not allowed to speak against our decisions, and instituted disciplinary action against him. This seems to us a very strange situation, that basically the police services boards are above. We understand the idea of kind of collective responsibility and so forth, but nevertheless, that these are very major financial decisions being taken by a police services board, basically behind closed doors. I know it's not technically in secret, but these numbers are, and councillors basically aren't allowed to then question those decisions. And a point I believe you made, certainly was mentioned in the CBC article on this, that basically the regions and the municipalities who in theory can vote against these increases really don't have that power per se. That whatever the board says is pretty much what ends up happening, whether you like it or not. Is that anything like a fair
That's
description
pretty
of kind of
accurate. I can give I can give you a bit more detail. Yesterday we had our regional first regional budget meeting of of Peel Region Council, and we passed a resolution to send the budget back to the Police Services Board and ask them to please take another look at it. I think we sent it back at 4:00, and less than 6 hours later, quite late in the evening, we got the response, which was a 2-page long way of saying, no, we're not doing it. So the only recourse we have now is we pass a motion at the region that says we are setting your budget at such and such an increase. We can't tell them what to spend it on, how to spend it, and that's not our job. But we could say, okay, instead of 23.3, we want you to come back in at 15. And then if they disagree, then they can take it or we can take it. I'm not absolutely sure on this. I should have memorized it. But one of us can take it off to adjudication. And then an adjudicator is appointed that will sit with the Police Services Board, sit with representatives of regional council, and possibly come up with some alternative. Toronto did that last year and failed miserably. So the system is such that you're actually in a position, if you are on the board, you can't criticize it. And if you're not on the board, you don't know the inner workings of how that number was. You don't get a line by line when it goes to the region.
And if any, I was talking to Joel before we came on. It's like, well, if any other kind of aspect of local regional government came in, I mean, if the school boards all said we want a 23% increase, I'm trying to think of other examples, but there are many. You know, if the environmental protection agencies wanted a 23% increase, all hell would break loose. But somehow with police boards, that doesn't happen. Well, I mean, I guess this is hell breaking loose to an extent, but I mean, it's taken this kind of level of incident to really get it onto the radar. Whereas, you know, why are police boards exempt from the normal kind of oversight that other organizations have to abide by?
And that's a very good question. And I also want you to know, I don't, as of nature, I don't fight police service board decisions. I don't fight reasonable increases that we can handle. But we're at a stage with this one where it's a massive increase. Our tax bill will be up around just under 10% increase from last year, which was already had a big increase on it. I am a police brat. My father was a cop in Toronto for 37 years. And we never lived high on the hog. So I think you pay police well. They have a difficult job, and they're getting into a range where they're being paid more fairly. That I'm not opposed to. What I am distressed about, I'm not even opposed to hiring 300 officers. Toronto phased theirs in. I think they put in 180 this year. They're adding some more over the next 5 years till they get to 500. Our guys are going to do 600 in 2 years. And given the unfair way the police bill is split between Brampton and Mississauga, we're carrying, as I said, $85 million of Brampton's share on our shoulders, which means I have to tell seniors on fixed incomes, I have to tell people that I'm sorry, I've got to raise your taxes 10% this year just to hold our own. So yes, it seems a bit odd, but those are the rules of the game. And I knew the rules when I went in. I used to always wonder why Hazel McCallion never went on the Police Services Board, and I found out in 3 months that she wouldn't have kept her mouth shut. She would have been fighting it. So, but, you know, those days they weren't hitting huge increases like this. So I don't question they need more officers. I question the fact that they have tunnel vision. They're just looking at one aspect of what runs this city. I, as the mayor, have to look at everything altogether and prioritize things. So to tell me I can't talk about it is really difficult for me to follow. So I was better to resign.
Well, I can understand that point of view. I think what's troubling to us, I'm hoping our listeners as well, is the idea of you are an elected official, and the other councillors on Mississauga City Council are elected to represent the people's interests at City Council, as well as the public purse.
Correct.
And there's a part of that is accountability that you as mayor and your fellow councillors make a decision on how to spend the public purse. And that might mean some departments don't get as much as others because of your decisions. And
Absolutely.
I find, and you have to bear the responsibility, whether good or bad. If the public say, no, Mayor Parrish, we think you should be spending as much as you can on service X, Y, and Z, and you say no, you have to defend that. And that's politics. That's the game. That's democracy.
Yep.
I find what's troubling about this is that power has been taken away from you and your fellow councillors, that you don't, and this is what we're hearing from other councils around Ontario, is that really the power over the public purse is not really at the council table anymore. It is, as Roland said earlier, kind of behind this closed door, and it's, we're not really allowed to talk about it or have an open debate. And quite frankly, if it's public tax dollars, I think every penny should be up for debate. And I'm wondering, do you share my sentiments on this, or is this more of
I do. That's why I resigned. My responsibility is to every human being that lives in our city. And it's my responsibility and that of council to decide where we take the precious dollars they give us. How are we going to allocate it? For example, do we cut out free passes for people over 65 to use the swimming pools when nobody's using them during the day? No, we're not taking that away. Do we take away the free passes to get on transit so they get out of their cars, they get out, they socialize, and they don't have accidents? Because as the older you get, the worse your reflexes are. I can vouch for that myself. Mm-hmm. So the point is, we would have to take away all the things that our residents really value to try and cope with this increase. And again, I keep saying, because it's driving me personally up the wall, why are my people in my city paying for $85 million to cover the extra police required up in Brampton? The way the allocation goes, nobody's looked at it in years. We looked at it about 7 years ago, and when it came time to vote on changing it to representation by population, the Brampton councillors all left the room. And you have to have one councillor from each of the three municipalities in their seats voting, or the meeting comes to an end. So if we try to do that again, same thing will happen. They would be foolish to say, woo, we're going to take on $85 million this year and we're going to give that to our taxpayers to handle. So it's a dilemma. It's a double-edged sword. I don't know if it's like that with the rest of the regional governments around here, or it's just uniquely ours. But we have a very big problem. Number one, 23.3% increase translates to 5.5 on your tax bill. And two, we have an unfair process of taxation that gives Brampton a bit of a free ride.
Your predecessor, Mayor or former Mayor Bonnie Crombie, we had her on to talk about the dissolution of Peel Region. She was really big on pushing for that. That has since, let's just say, stalled out, or it's in a bit of a quagmire in terms of where we're going forward. It's not stalled.
It's not stalled. We've had meetings. The three mayors have met with the premier right in the office at his house. They are in the process of drafting legislation that will move some services out of the region down to the local governments, which is going to be great, and keeping mostly the social services at the region. They're just going to put some hard services down closer to us, which we will then assume the cost of, and the region their portion of the tax bill will just be smaller. I have no problem with that. I think it's a good solution to that problem, and I thank Bonnie for pushing it. It's a good thing.
Okay, but I mean that's kind of a far cry from the dissolution of Peel Region. Yes, which was the original idea, was just Peel Region, no more. Brampton and Mississauga
exist anymore.
Go your own way. This, however, it seems a big problem that the provinces probably have to step in and maybe pass some kind of.
They already are. They're already doing it.
So what to deal with the issue of the police budget?
No. They're stepping in on a dissolution. They've done the evaluation. They had a transition team that they appointed to come out and go through all the books and check everything out, and they've come up with what I think is a good plan.
But going forward, I guess my point that I'm trying to make, though, is still is a Peel region problem where Brampton clearly doesn't want to foot a higher bill, and who wouldn't? The deal works out pretty well for them, but Mississauga is being left with 62%, I think you just said, of the bill.
62% of the bill.
And again, but that's just the structure of the Peel region as it sits right now. Is there talk of going to the province and saying we need to further go into this a bit deeper, because we can't afford this. Like, this is just you're passing on a.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. And I've sent a request off to the Premier's office to say, could you call in Mayor Brown and call me in, and let's sit down and figure out how we can do this. You can't just tell Brampton this year you're stuck with $85 million. Too bad, find it. So perhaps there's a way we can transition it over 3 years so they slowly pick up the share that they should be paying. I'm okay with that. I mean, I wouldn't want somebody else to turn around and, well, they just did, hit us with millions and millions of dollars that we have to pay for increased police services. And I'm not in a position to argue with the experts who are the police themselves. If they say this is how many we need, if they were to smooth it out and take 5 years to hire those people, we could probably get ourselves in shape to handle it. What it has done, though, is it's reminded me at 4:30 in the morning, I sat straight up in bed and went, holy Moses, we're paying 62% of this. And then it got me thinking that's the second problem. So we've got two problems. We've got an inability to talk about or do anything about the 23.3% increase. And the second problem is we're being overcharged massively. And if you equate the populations, they're pretty close. I think we would end up taking 51 and they take 49. If you look at the crime rates, they have more drug-related problems. We have more car thefts. But generally speaking, the police services are equivalent in both cities. So the only thing that's not right is the amount that we're paying, the percentage that we're paying, and that has to be fixed. And if, I must say to you, if they hadn't come in with such an enormous request this year, I probably wouldn't be worrying about the proportions. But now I have no choice.
Well, understandable.
To do all this, I had to be off the board. It's a huge bill. To do all this, I have to be off the board. I can't breach their code of conduct plus serve my constituents.
No, I mean, you're saying that the police are the expert on what they need, sure. However, I mean, a 21.3% increase. Has there been a 21.3% increase in crime? What evidence is there?
No, it's not 21.3. It's 23.3. There's 2% in there for capital expenditures. It's 21.3 just for police officers' equipment. For example, there's an item in there for $9 million, and then it's to outfit the officers with body armor. Now, they've got perfectly good body armor now, but it's mandated by the province. We want you to get this particular piece of body armor, so you have to do it. We also want you to change the type of guns you use. So $9 million later, the province has mandated this, so they have to do it, but it hasn't put a penny into it. So those are the sorts of things that if you could go through the budget as a regional council with a fine-tooth comb, we could advocate on their behalf. We could say to Mr. Ford, who's pretty reasonable and very pro-police, if you want $9 million more equipment, could you please pay for it? And we would be able to work together with the police, but it doesn't work that way. It's like two separate bodies, and as I said, the only ones that cross the divide are the two mayors, and they can't and will not be able to speak out against what's going on. So again, the original question you asked me is, why did I resign? I resigned because I can't wear two hats, and I have to choose the one that's most important to me.
Okay. Well, I think that covers it pretty well. We both appreciate you giving us the time today to talk about this. I think it's a really important subject. As I say, it's something that's come up in multiple municipalities. And it ultimately comes back to an issue that comes up again and again with municipalities, and that you're on the hook for the what do you go and ask? What do you take in taxation? But you're not actually being in control of the decisions, which right. I think is
And I don't know. Patrick Brown seems happy with it. As a matter of fact, I was in a room when he said, "You sure you don't want 600 new officers?" So, but if I were in Patrick's shoes, I'd be okay with it too, because I'm not paying my share. So it's like, he knows we need more officers. I don't disagree that we need more officers. I wouldn't have done 300 in 1 year. And they did 150 last year. They're playing very rapid catch up because we're becoming a really serious big city now. We're not the kind of sleepy little suburban city that we were. So yes, the crime is increasing. I'm not sure if we need that many right away, but as I said, that's not the issue. The issue is I can't tell that to my taxpayers and say, I think this is fair, because I don't.
Well, you know what? I think that's where we're going to have to leave off this episode on that note. So thank you, Mayor Carolyn Parrish from Mississauga, for coming on today to talk about this important issue. And we look forward to seeing how this develops.
Well, and I appreciate the opportunity to explain it really clearly. I know I've probably repeated myself a little, but I have a tendency of grabbing onto the serious facts and just jamming them at people as much as I can.
That's why we love doing this, because it's not the 3-second soundbite. We can actually dive into the numbers and the facts and get a bit more nuance in terms of this complex issue. So we thank you very much for your time. It's been very informative.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry it took me a while to get in. I'm not technically all that competent.
Oh, it's all good. Nobody knows the difference.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns, or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We'd love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.